Hello, this is a Brave Knight Mercenary spotlight on Susayra. Susayra is a 5-star rarity warrior. She joined the Obscurus Octos to obtain more power in a desperate attempt to get Balfour to acknowledge her. While it worked and her love interest began to notice her, she began to lose her memories and transform into a monster. The only semblance of her past self that she has is her habit to talk to herself in front of a mirror. Gameplay-wise, Susayra is a very different character in many ways. I'll briefly go over her skills, gameplay style, and provide some of my opinions on Susayra. I won't be going over the details of her skills, but just the general parts of it. I linked the Brave Knight Encyclopedia in the video description where you can easily read on her stats and skill values. Susayra's first skill is Crystal Collection. This skill is one of Susayra's unique mechanics. The first part of this skill explains her transformation. Susayra has two forms, regular form and her ego in mirror form, which I'm just going to call her ego form. Susayra will transform into her ego form upon obtaining 8 crystal pieces. Susayra obtains crystal pieces whenever her allies attack an enemy. Her own attacks do not generate crystals, so she is dependent on her allies to obtain crystal pieces for her. Multiple crystals can be obtained at once depending on her allies. In this example, Rafina attacks once, but she hits 4 targets at once. This results in Susayra obtaining 4 crystal pieces. Multi-hitters can also generate multiple crystals. In this case, Rogan hits 3 targets at once, but Rogan attacks twice, so he ends up generating a total of 6 crystal pieces for Susayra. Also, for each crystal piece she has, Susayra will gain crit damage. Lastly, Susayra's normal form will have her attack range always reduced to a single tile. Her impressive AoE is only available in her ego form. Susayra's second skill is Ego in Mirror. This skill covers the bonuses that Susayra gets in her ego form. Susayra remains in ego form for 8 turns after she transforms, and she has her true tile attack range in this form. If she's at 0 to +3, it's a full vertical tile reach, but at +4 and above, it's a powerful 3x5 tile range. Also, when Susayra enters ego form, she loses her 8 crystal pieces and crit damage that she gets from it, but she gets an overall boost to crit damage that more than covers up the missing crit damage from those crystal pieces. Upon entering ego form, she fully recovers her life and she gets her unique guard buff called Crystallization, which acts like a death guard for Susayra. Crystallization remains even if she transforms back to human form. Should she re-enter her ego form, her Crystallization buff is refreshed. Susayra's third skill is Violent Bash. Susayra ignores defense and deals additional damage based on the remaining HP and her attack. The healthier the opponent, the more damage that the additional damage deals. This additional damage portion can crit, and Susayra has a lot of crit damage modifiers to make this hurt. Susayra's awakening skill is Debuff Immunity. Susayra is immune to all debuffs. At +11, the skill gains max incoming damage reduction, which is 70%. Susayra is a very interesting character gameplay-wise. Her impressive offensive ability is locked behind a transformation mechanic that requires her to get ramped up. She is a warrior with no value as an initiator because she needs to first rely on her allies to land attacks so she can obtain crystal pieces. While hitting 8 units total doesn't seem like a difficult feat, it's actually fairly cumbersome to reach if you don't run units that are good for it. Susayra is very fragile otherwise because despite having a highly coveted debuff immunity with max damage reduction, her defensive stats are weak. She needs to transform to obtain her guard skills so that she can safely take hits or attack with much less fear of dying. Susayra's ramp up playstyle also makes her feel more of a mage than warrior at times. She needs to move fairly late for a better chance to attack in ego form. While she's not necessarily weak in normal form, the performance difference compared to ego form is very large. It's also worth noting that Susayra's ego form is very short at 8 turns. It's possible to meet the requirement for Susayra to transform, just to have her already back in human form before she gets to attack. While she still obtains her guard after transforming back to a human, missing out on offensive power is very disappointing. Susayra can see very fluctuating performance, but if your ability to predict and read trends and forms is good, she can be very powerful. A 3x5 attack tile that hits skip and ignores defense is outright brutal, and her guard skill can make her surprisingly sticky, especially if she manages to score back-to-back transformations. I'll go over what Susayra counters. Susayra is a skip attacker that ignores defense, similar to Orfina and Seto. Susayra's general damage without crystal pieces is good enough to one-shot most 100% defense units with low amounts of health, like Eden, Dalby, and Angelica. Susayra will need more crit damage or to be in ego mode to be able to reliably kill tankier units like Levia or Orfina. She can check most non-tanky units otherwise. I'll go over some Susayra counters now. Alec is probably the best answer to Susayra due to his direct damage on normal attack. Levia can do similar, but Levia also has issues of being countered by Susayra. Susayra suffers from needing to ramp up, so any unit is capable of killing her outright if she hasn't obtained her ego form yet. If she ends up attacking while in human form, she can die to almost anything, such as Frithia counter or Seto's counter. Even with Susayra's guard, she suffers from multi-hit units. Eleanor and Christina do very well in shredding her post-transformation. Susayra's inability to deal strong amounts of percentage damage also makes her have issues with super tanks like Gran, Valtor, and Bane. She needs a lot of buffs behind her to do well against these units. Valtor is particularly problematic because of her crazy AoE. If Valtor is caught within the AoE, he may be able to remove her buffs before it's calculated onto other characters caught within the AoE. So some synergies with Susayra. Susayra is heavily reliant on her allies, and she really desires allies who have strong AoE attacks or multi-hits so that she can generate crystals quickly. Christina is single-handedly one of the best partners that Susayra can have. If Christina hits 2 targets, Susayra is very likely to transform. Note that if Christina kills 2 targets on her very first shot, it will only count as 2 crystal pieces instead of 10. Eleanor is also very good for similar reasons that Christina is. Bane has a very large reach with his normal attack, and his taunt can be good in drawing away aggro from Susayra so that she can more safely transform. Some mages with great AoE can also be good for Susayra. Nartis, Catherine, and Belfern could be decent partners. As for anti-synergies, Sola is a really bad partner for Susayra, primarily because Sola forms are very mage-focused if you're playing for Sola's offensive aura. Running 4 mages with Susayra will almost likely doom Susayra to being unable to transform round 1. Okay, so for my opinion. Susayra is pretty fun and satisfying to use. Getting those 3x5 column clears is really nasty, but Susayra does run into a lot of consistency problems. Orvina and Seto are very stable in terms of their role, and you can count on them to always perform to a certain extent, but Susayra could wildly vary between hit or miss. I think she has a lot of potential, especially if you can begin to time her attacks correctly. She has a lot of power to win games, especially if she just attacks once. I think she's very solid overall in PvE and PvP content. She might be pretty hard to use in Underground Arena, but because she's a good unit to play late, she can still be a good trump card at the end. Similarly, her strong AoE and deliberate planning in Guild War can make her potentially strong to quickly mow down units and save turn counts. I don't think she's a must-have, but she can be quite strong. If you do build her, she's functionally complete at +3 actually, but will obviously run into performance issues with her low additional damage value on Violent Bash. Violent Bash is a very important skill for her, so bringing her up to +9, 12, or 14 should be considered. +15 is a very good final hurdle for Susayra because her guard count goes from 2 to 3 normal attacks, which is insanely strong. Susayra often finds herself in situations where she tanks 1 hit but she dies on the second. Having 3 death guard stacks can make it at least so that she tanks 2 hits and sometimes 3 depending on who lands on the final hit. The ability to stall 1 more hit should not be underestimated, and could sometimes be the crutch that allows Susayra to live longer until the transformation again, and resets her guard stacks. So skills aside, there's another reason why Susayra is very interesting. She's not obtained by conventional means. You can't roll for her or for her companion. Susayra is obtained by playing the newly added Gate of Chaos PvE mode. You navigate this fairly challenging series of PvE stages with its own unique rules. Completing stages will allow you to obtain ancient magic stones, which can be traded for Susayra, her companion, and her soul gears. Anyways, this video isn't really about Gate of Chaos, so I won't go deep into that. Just know that Susayra isn't a character you need to roll for. You can actually obtain the character fairly easily, but getting enough materials to buy and max out her companion along with finishing all of her soul gears is not something all accounts will be able to do given the challenge of Gate of Chaos. Anyways, Susayra is solid. She's fun to use and her companion is cool, especially when he transforms. I'm also not sure if it's just me, but her thighs look really weird in this picture. Feels too disproportionate, like some kind of turkey leg or something. Anyways, thanks for watching my Susayra Mercenary Spotlight.